So before we can learn all of these great new technologies, we need to make sure we have our development environment set up and ready to go. So one thing that you will need is a web server running PHP. We're not going to be doing any PHP scripting, but it is needed because of a security limitation with Ajax. So I'm going to provide you with a script that's going to run, a PHP script that's going to run on the web server. And basically our Ajax is going to call back to that script, which is then going to grab the tweets and then hand them back to us. So that's why we require PHP. The best way to test these things, these technologies, are using an actual device like I just showed, but we don't always have these devices. So the second best way would be to use the simulators. All the simulator is a way to run these web applications on your actual computer as if they were running on one of the devices. And the way to install the simulators is typically to install the software developer kit. And I will show you how to do that in just a minute. So we're going to make sure to get the iPhone, iPad, and Android simulators up and running in just a minute. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you how to get PHP set up on your Mac, and we'll get those SDKs installed.
And just to explain to the audience, we're not actually doing any PHP programming, right? We're just using it to serve little bits of code for, for the demos. So if you're not a PHP programmer, don't worry about it.
You can take a look at my script that I'm going to provide you, but yeah, we're not going to be doing any PHP scripting in this class. So, if you're running Mac OS X 10.5 or later, you already have PHP installed on your computer, but it is not enabled by default. So to enable it, we need to edit the Apache config file. The Apache is the web server that comes installed on the Mac. So to do that, I'm going to open up a new window. The config file is in a hidden directory. So to get to that, I'm going to hit Command-Shift-G, and it's going to bring this down. And we're just going to type in /etc, and you hit Enter, and that brings us to that folder. And then you'll find this Apache 2 folder. And in there is httpd.conf file. So I'm going to drag this down to TextMate. I'm going to say Open. And here's our config file. It's pretty gnarly, but all we're looking for, you'll find a file that looks like this with this PHP module, this load module, PHP5 module commented out. All you need to do is remove that hash mark there at the beginning and save the file. When you save it, because it is a hidden directory and it is write protected, you're going to need to enter an admin's name and password to go ahead and save that. I've already done that, so I'm not going to do that here. So once you get that set up, all you need to do is enable the web server running on your machine. So I'm going to launch System Preferences here, go into the Sharing Preference pane, and then there's this web sharing. If you already have it turned on, make sure to uncheck it, wait for that to stop. So now web sharing is off, and then check it again, and now we're back on. So now PHP is enabled on our machine. And you'll need to restart that for it to look at that setting file. So let's see. The next thing we want to do is make sure that our iOS SDK is installed. So let me go ahead and open up Safari. You can download the SDK from developer.apple.com. It does require a free ADC account or developer account. So what you can do is go to this page, click on the iOS Dev Center. That is where you want to register. Hit this register link here. As I stated, it's free. Go ahead and sign up for that. Once you're done signing up for that, you need to log in. And then you'll come here after you've logged in, iOS SDK 4.1 resources, and all the way at the bottom on the right, you want to download this Xcode 3.204, or probably whatever's the latest will be fine. Go ahead and click on that and then download it. Looks like our internet's pretty good because it's only going to take 8 minutes.
And we also had some people suggest looking in Spotlight to see if you can find it.
Oh, yes. Let's see. I don't know. Oh, look. Maybe. Oh, it's in Documents. Thank you, online user. Oh, no. That's the download that it's downloading right now, unfortunately. It looks like the installer package. I have Xcode already installed. It looks like the installer package may have gotten wiped. Luckily, Apple's installers are extremely easy to go through. Once you get this DMG downloaded, double-click it. It'll show up on your desktop, and then there'll be an installer inside of that. Just double-click that and follow the on-screen instructions. It's super simple. The Android SDK is going to take a little bit more, so let me go ahead and get into that. So to install the Android SDK, does not require you to sign up for anything. Just go to developer.android.com/SDK. I believe that's all you need. And right here at the top, there's 3 links, one for Windows, one for Mac, and one for Linux. Download the one that makes sense for you. And once you get that zip file, unzip it into where you want it to live. So once you have it unzipped, you want to put it in a place that you're not going to move it because we're going to have to reference this file location. So I'm putting it right here in my home directory. I've unzipped it. This is the folder it unzipped to, so I just moved that folder right here into my home directory. All we need to do is run this Android application. So what I'm going to do, let's see, is double click on it. I'm going to hit open. And it launches this. Basically what we've just installed is the Android SDK manager. So now we need to download the actual SDK for this to use. To do that, we want to go to Available Packages here and go to this repository here. It should be the only one that shows up. When we open that up, we have a couple different choices here. The one we care about is not showing up for me because I already have it installed, but it's SDK Platform Android 2.2, and I think it's API 8. Let me see. Yes, API 8. So it's probably going to be right above this one on your machines. So find that one, check it, hit Install Selected, accept this, and it will install. It takes a little bit. So I'm not going to do it right now. So once you get the Android SDK installed, we need to set up an actual device, an emulator device. To do that, you click New here. We're going to name it. I named mine Droid. And then that API, or that SDK that you just downloaded will show up here, Android 2.2 API. Size, I've used 256. Seems to be adequate. And that's all you need to do. It's telling me I already have a Droid, so I'll call it Droid 2 just to show you. Create AVD. And you're done. So now to run that, we just select it, hit Start, hit Launch. And now we have an Android running on our computer. It takes it a little bit to get set up, on first run. That's what I meant to say. While that's chugging away, well, never mind. Let's just wait for it.
So while we're waiting for it, some people are commenting that it seems like it's just a pain to have to install all these SDKs. But the advantage is you get to actually test things like orientation detection and geolocation, which you can't necessarily test in.
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a pain. Luckily, you only have to do it once per SDK that you want to install. But yes, you can do minimal testing in Safari on the desktop. But to make sure it's going to work on the device you're trying to target, I highly recommend at least testing on an emulator if you can't get your hands on the actual device. So I personally, it's a necessity from my point of view.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's set up. And it acts just like an Android phone would. You have your browser down here. And there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. We're done getting that up and running. So I told you how to install the iPhone SDK, but didn't tell you how to run the iPhone simulator yet. I'm going to close these windows. So when you install the iPhone SDK, it's going to install by default to this developer folder. This is at the root of your hard drive. And typically called developer unless you've changed it during the install. To get to the iPhone SDK, the iPhone simulator, you'll go to developer. There it is, platforms. And then it's here, iPhone simulator is what you're looking for under platforms, developer. Applications, and there's the iPhone simulator. This is very hard to get to. I would suggest dragging it down to your dock. That's what I've done here. Or if you like to use Spotlight, you can easily get to it via Spotlight. Just type in iPhone simulator, and it'll come up. But for those of you that don't like the keyboard, go ahead and drag it down to your dock. And I'll show you what that looks like.
And just while that's starting up, I wanted to remind everybody that detailed instructions for installing are in the tip sheet for this week, which is in the download directory on examples.o'reilly.com. So if you weren't able to follow along, you'll be able to grab that file and get all the details, the links, and the instructions. So.
Yes, absolutely. So here is, I believe, the iPad simulator. Yep. You can change what device you are running through the simulator via the hardware device menu. So we have iPad, iPhone, and iPhone 4. And if you want to check on older versions of the OS, you can also change what version you're running in that simulator. So just to be sure if you want to test it on an older OS. And then we can launch simulator, and there's our Tweetster app we're going to be making in weeks 1 through 6, or 2 through 6.
Cool. And do you have the Android simulator still running?
I don't. Okay. I closed it, but I can open it back if you'd like.
It'd be cool to see that one in the Android simulator too.
Oh, you want me to open? Okay. Well, let me open this one because I need the URL. And then, so again, to open the Android simulator, we're going to open a new Finder. We're going to go to where we created that folder, the tools, and then it's this Android application that we want to run.
And can you remind everybody which versions of the different SDKs that you installed?
Yeah. The Android SDK is, let me see. It doesn't show me. It does not show me what version. I believe I downloaded whatever the newest one was at the time from Android.com or from
Google.
From Google,
yeah.
Thank you. But whenever, remember that that's just the SDK installer. Once you get installed, I downloaded Android 2.2 API level 8 for Android. And then for iPhone, I don't, the iPhone simulators I'm sorry, the iPhone SDK is usually versioned depending on what version Xcode it's installing. I don't know off the top of my head. I can launch Xcode real quick and find out.
I think the most recent version was 3.2. Is that right?
Yeah, 3.2.4. Yep. 3.2.4 for the iPhone SDK. Let me quit that. So I'm going to go ahead and start the Android simulator. And we're going to click launch.
That always takes so long to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Need that Jeopardy music going.
Yeah.
Dun, dun,
I'm
dun,
not quite sure what it's doing. I think because it's a full-fledged emulator, it is doing everything your phone would do whenever you turned it on. Versus the iPhone simulator, which is just kind of acting like an iPad.
Yeah. And a lot of people have been noting, asking, do we need snow leopard, not just leopard? And the answer is yes, you need snow leopard for the iPhone iPad simulator.
Yes. So let me go ahead and show you Tweetster in I'm sorry, in the Google emulator, Android emulator. I'm going to maximize this so I can see what that says. Oh, I can't use that. Okay, so here's the problem with the Android SDK is it does not have Bonjour installed. So I need to know the IP address of the computer I'm trying to access. So how do I cancel this? To get the IP address of your computer, launch System Preferences, Sharing, Web Sharing, and there's the IP, 10.1.10.15 for this particular computer right now. So I'm just going to type that in, .15 / nope, that's my computer. iPhone, HTML5, week 6. Final. So let me go ahead and show you this. So there you go. There is our, let me go ahead and scale the iPad simulator back down to 50% so we can see the whole thing on the screen. So there you go. iPad simulator versus Android simulator. One thing you'll notice is Android does have the ability to show web fonts, which the iOS does not currently, but I believe is going may be coming in the next OS. There you go.
Awesome.
Are there any questions?
Yes, we have a bunch of questions. And first, let me ask if there's any questions in the Seattle audience. Nope, not yet. Okay. All right. Somebody asked if the SDKs are backwards compatible. And in general, I kind of find that they're not. Although for HTML, they're a little bit. But there's so many new features each time. It's hard to say that they're.
I'm not quite sure what that question means.
I'm guessing older code running in the newer simulator or newer code running in the older simulators.
Okay, newer code running in the older simulators probably won't work. Older code running in the new simulators, I don't see why that wouldn't work because it's not like they're taking out features. So
right.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then somebody asked how you do pinch zoom on the simulators.
Oh, good question. So for the iPhone simulator, it's the Option key on the Mac. If you hold down Option, you'll get these two little dots. And when I click now and pull, well, I've made it so you can't zoom in on my page. But let me go to like Google. Option, and then you click and drag, and that will zoom in and out here. You can also use the double tap on the iPad, iPhone simulators. So you can double tap on there, and it'll on Google, and it'll zoom into that image.
Okay. And then are you going to show us how to disallow people from pinching and zooming?
Yes.
Okay.
I will show you that next class.
Awesome. Okay. And then for the videos, because you showed it, that we're going to be covering a class that covers videos, is there a format that's preferred for those embedded videos?
Yes. There are two formats you need to support right now. One is MPEG-4, and one is OGG Vorbos. I'm going to go into that when we get to that class, but because the iOS simulator will only do the MPEG-4 videos, and the Android simulator will only do the OGG videos, you will need to encode your videos for those two different formats.
Yep. Okay. And then we've had quite a few people express some unhappiness that the iPhone simulator is not available on Windows.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you're on Windows and you're trying to take this class, I would suggest installing Safari for Windows. A lot of the stuff can be done on the desktop. The orientation detection, we can kind of get to work. I believe almost everything else that I can think of right now will run on the desktop, though. I think that the orientation detection will give you the hardest trouble, but yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, okay. And then once you've got the PHP working and your web server turned on, is there anything else special that you need to do in order to serve mobile web apps from your server? Or is it just like serving normal web pages?
It's just like serving normal web pages. Unless you want to use some other server-side technology, there's nothing else you need to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's see. What other questions do we have? So once everybody has Xcode and iOS SDK installed, Eclipse with Android SDK, the PHP, the web server running, that's everything we need to run all the examples in the class.
Yeah, I would suggest having a good text editor, though. You want a plain text editor. You don't want to be editing this stuff with Word. For the Mac, I'm going to be using TextMate. I use TextMate every day of my profession, so I really like it. But it is pay for. If you want a free alternative to TextMate on the Mac, I would suggest Text Wrangler. And then on Windows, if you're trying to do this on Windows, there's I believe Notepad++ is a great editor on Windows. There's a TextMate, basically almost a port of TextMate for Windows called eText Editor, which is pretty powerful. And then again, comes free with Windows. You can always use Notepad. So that should be all you need to get everything set up and running. Elizabeth, you mentioned Eclipse. You won't need to have Eclipse installed for this class.
Okay.
That Eclipse is only needed if you're trying to write native applications for Android.
Okay, excellent. And a number of people have actually asked about HTML5 WebSockets and whether those are accessible on the mobile platform.
Not currently. No, they're not. They're not accessible using the iOS, and I believe they're not on Android either. So unfortunately, we won't be covering that in this class. But
okay.
It's a great topic.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned that we're going to be talking about web databases.
Yes.
So we had a couple of questions about like what those are, and is it sort of equivalent to SQLite, and where the database is stored on the mobile device.
It's as far as I know, it is using SQLite in the back end for its actual data store. The syntax is SQLite syntax. So it's if you know SQLite, then you're most of the way there. The way to on the mobile devices, it's stored in a place you don't need to know about, but in order to access it, you can open up the Preferences app on the iOS, go to the Safari preference, and then click here on Databases. And then here's the databases that my device knows about. So if you want to delete them, you can hit that Edit button and delete. You can go into it and see what its max size is and how much it's using. There's no way to actually get to the data of it from this UI. But if you need to delete it, that's one way to do it, or you can do it from code.
Okay. And then we had a question from way back at the beginning you mentioned the semantic tags in HTML and why the browser would care about the semantic tags. Beyond just the fact that there are new elements that it recognizes.
As I stated earlier, I think accessibility is one of the biggest reasons to use semantic elements. It can help software such as screen readers and the like to know what that information is on the web page to help the user access your web application easier. So it's really for accessibility, user experience.
Okay. And related to accessibility, we had a question about voice forms. Is there a way on mobile devices yet where you can enter information in a form via voice?
I don't believe so, but that's a great feature.
Yeah.
I would submit that to Apple.
Did you hear that, chat room? Submit it to Apple. All right. All right. So that was the questions that I had from the chat room. I'll ask one more time. Is there any questions from... We do have a question in the audience. Can somebody help grab the mic? Thank you.
Yeah, just along the lines with the HTML5 tags you were talking about. Is there any kind of graceful degradation to that? What happens if I happen to be using a user agent that only supports HTML4? Will the tags just be ignored?
No, well, some of them. So the section tag and stuff like that, by default, an HTML4 browser won't know how to style that. So I'm going to show you next class. I would use a HTML5 CSS reset to add default styling to those tags. Things like the video and audio tag, though, those will degrade gracefully. Any content inside of those tags will be shown if the browser doesn't support them. So things like that, yes. But yeah, you can also use, I know there are some JavaScript libraries to help with that. One's modernizer.js is supposed to be really good for exactly what you said, making sure that your page degrades gracefully.
Can you go back to the Twitter app really quick? 'Cause people are asking to be able to compare it. They wanted to compare again the.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. There we go. Thanks.
So I did have a second question.
Yep.
A couple times when you're demoing the canvas tag, you mentioned some CSS, and I thought you might have said something about CSS specific for the mobile device, or are these just simply classes that are supported already in CSS3, or is this some kind of new
I might have
stuff?
misspoke if I said CSS for the canvas tag. You can style the canvas tag such as using standard CSS like the width and height and background color and stuff like that. But elements that you're drawing in using JavaScript for the canvas tag all need to be handled with JavaScript. I hope that makes sense.
So like with the orientation thing you're doing.
All of that that's all using JavaScript canvas APIs. Yeah.
And, oh yeah, go ahead.
So I want to know if you are going to be covering some kind of a testing strategy or automated testing strategy for the mobile apps we are going to do, because once you have features and you want to make sure the experience is good on them.
Yeah, that's a great topic. I'm not going to be covering it in this class, but that would be a great class. Mobile unit testing and stuff like that.
And the other question is, would we be completely ignoring BlackBerry in this class, or is there
depends on your definition of completely.
I mean,
I'm not going to be showing anything running on a BlackBerry. I don't have one, and I haven't installed the simulators, and I didn't gear any of this towards it. But the BlackBerry is running essentially the same rendering engine as the iPhone and Android runs WebKit. So a lot of this should work, and I would have to leave it up to you to test that to see. Yeah.
So we are pretty much focusing on iPhone and Android.
Correct.
Thank you.
I had a couple more questions about the Android simulator. Is there a way to pinch and zoom in Android, and also how do you rotate the device? Is that possible?
Pinch and zoom, I'm not sure about. I would have to go look at the documentation. There is a way to rotate it. I'll have to remember what it is. Okay, it's Control F12 will rotate it. There you go.
Nice.
So Control F12.
All right, good. Well, did you have any more slides for us? Or is
I believe that's it for today. Next week we'll be doing coding, so that's going to be a lot more exciting, I think.
Definitely. Well, thanks for doing the overview, and hopefully that gives everybody a good sense of what's coming up in the next 9 weeks.